Time to look at some of what's in the papers on this Monday morning. I want to start with the front page of the Daily News. For decades, Bay Ridge residents thought of their neighborhood as one of the safer and quieter parts of the city, but there's been a slew of break-ins recently. One person says it's the wild, wild west here now. These burglaries have been at small businesses, a pizzeria, a bagel shop, and more. Police think the same crew may be responsible for half a dozen break-ins, taking around $28,000 in total. This has made a lot of people in the neighborhood feel less safe. The U.S. Attorney's Office for New York is forming a new committee focused on exonerating prisoners who have been wrongfully convicted. It is focusing not just on cases that the Southern District pursued, but in other cases these were in other states or in federal jurisdictions. The paper sits down with actor Tanya Pinkins, who stars in the Public Theater's new revival of A Raisin in the Sun. The Tony winner is vocal about not taking roles in revivals, but she made an exception because she liked the pitch for this one. The director said the focus would be on the women in the younger family. Here's the back page. It was a fantastic game for the Yankees. They avoided elimination, as we've been telling you, forcing things back to the Bronx for a deciding Game 5. A lot of that thanks to Garrett Cole and his 7 innings last night. Great photo on page 39. Oswaldo Cabrera and Harrison Bader leaping into the air as they celebrate their win. The Times is publishing its Siena poll on the front page this morning, looking at the midterms, looking at the attitudes of voters nationally. Independent voters who leaned narrowly to Democrats in September have shifted and are now favoring Republicans. The dominance of the economy, the biggest issue in the campaign. 44% of Americans say economic issues are the most important thing sending them to the polls this fall. And that is consistent with a front page story from the Staten Island Advance this morning, which says 46% of Americans believe their personal financial situation is poor. The Post has an economy story on the front page this morning talking about 401ks and the fact that they, on average, are down 25% over this calendar year. Let's go back to the Times for the chaos of Russia's military draft. It's already driven some conscripts to the breaking point. They are given very little training. They are not even given the equipment they need. This story says they often rely on family members to provide them battlefield essentials like boots or bulletproof vests. The reporting coming in with migrants and arriving in the city. It's easy to forget sometimes why many of them have chosen to come to the 5 boroughs. They believe that there is work here. The woman pictured in the center of this page has an engineering degree. She's never really been able to put it to use. Working odd jobs in Venezuela, Colombia, and Peru, she sees new opportunities in New York. Job centers overwhelmed, though, by the number of migrants looking for work. Free OSHA courses that could open up the door to construction jobs are full at least until November. Fencing is a very expensive sport, but for college prospects, that can open up the door to an elite school. Harvard and Columbia and NYU, some of the schools with NCAA fencing teams. So places like the Manhattan Fencing Center see a lot of teenagers signing up because they think it will be a competitive edge in college applications. Tournaments are often in places like Cairo or Bucharest. So fencing is viewed as a country club sport most accessible to wealthy families. Culture writer Dave Itzkoff says the posthumous memoir from Paul Newman is full of remarkable candor. It's called The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man, being released tomorrow. It's assembled from years of interviews with Newman. Itzkoff says Newman discusses his self-doubts, his struggles with alcohol, his difficulties in family life. His daughters helped assemble the memoir. We saw the front page of the Post. Naturally, the Yankees are the lead in the sports section. Garrett Cole's pitching, helping to force the deciding 5th game. Baseball writer Ian O'Connor notes the contributions of Harrison Bader. He has hit 3 home runs in this series against Cleveland. O'Connor notes he is the first player to hit his first home runs as a Yankee in the postseason. Steve Kuzo's real estate column focuses on retail rents. It's a very modest improvement, but there are signs that demand for retail space is improving. Landlords asking a little bit more than they were last quarter, which is a sign that they're confident that there's more demand out there for storefront space. The TikTok Halloween costume of the moment is apparently a sexy fairy costume, which as far as the Post can tell is Pretty much just a negligee paired with a flower crown and wings. From the northern boundary of Central Park comes the story on page 6 about dozens of birds that fly into this building without seeing it. The Audubon Society calling for a refit with bird-friendly glass. Volunteers routinely stop in front of the building to pick up the dead birds each morning. From the Staten Island Advance, a story about couples who move in together and gain weight together. Experts believe this is a pattern. They say it's hard to develop any formal data because there are so many factors. When did you become a couple? When did you start to gain the weight? They do note, though, that happy couples are twice as likely to put on weight than couples who are not content with their relationship. Front page of the Journal. The Communist Party Congress in China, President Xi Jinping spoke on opening day, signaling his intent to stay in power and claim a third term. Xi claims he has successfully provided a counterpoint to Western democracy. The metaverse has failed to catch hold with the public, and the company formerly known as Facebook is realizing that. Internal documents obtained by the Journal show that Meta's transition toward this more interactive online experience has fallen way short of its initial goals. The public is just not that interested. Meta originally projected having 500,000 active users in the Horizon World's metaverse by the end of the year. That number is less than 200,000 in reality, and many of those who try out the metaverse lose interest after about a month. The A-Head story today looks at one of the biggest concerns among health officials in Japan. It is the use of salt. It's believed half of all adults in Japan have high blood pressure. Foods high in sodium are seen as the main culprit. But instead of changing traditional Japanese cuisine, the goal is essentially to trick consumers into tasting more salt than they're actually getting. One company has created a chopstick that delivers a small electrical current that zaps low-sodium foods so they taste saltier than they actually are. Public speaking is a very basic fear for a lot of people. The Zoom era of the pandemic made it worse for some. Companies that ask employees to speak to in-person conferences don't just want them to recite their notes, they want a real speech from them. Here are some tips for improving your public speaking. Keep your anecdotes to the point. Run jokes by coworkers before telling it on stage for the first time. Don't make fun of people below you in the office hierarchy. And learn how to effectively pause instead of filling up silence with like or Sports writer Andrew Beaton has pinpointed what seems to be a new strategy across the NFL, kicking longer field goals. So far this season, more attempts have been made on field goals over 50 yards than in the entire season back in 2000. The Giants faced one yesterday. Baltimore's kicker missed a 56-yard attempt. Several reasons are given why this has become the golden age of the football kicker. Kickers are stronger in general, and new rules have made rushes up the middle harder. And today's literary review is for Muppets in Moscow, a new memoir about a TV producer given the difficult task of bringing Sesame Street to Russia. Sesame Street has a lot of international versions, but adapting it for Russia was not easy. The representative working for the Children's Television Workshop met a lot of opposition from her Russian collaborators. For example, one Russian writer wanted to teach the letter D by using D is for depression. And they didn't want to show kids setting up a lemonade stand in Russia because the Russians believed that only desperate people sell stuff on the street. Let's look at some of what's in the papers on this Monday morning.